So we can see that even when it comes to the experiment, there are experiments within experiments, and this particular experiment, which the Pleiadians call the nanosecond, is soon over. In a few years, the world population will decrease. It has increased rapidly over the last 250 years, but that will not sustain itself after the nano, and the universe will have different ways of decreasing our world population down to a more normal level. It will, like we said, happen because of mass deaths, but also because men will notice that their sperm is not as good as it used to be, and less babies will be born. The fertility problem in both men and women has already started to be looked at as a major problem. Women go to sperm banks to have kids, and women who can't give birth rely on surrogate mothers for their babies. And the more we go towards the machine kingdom, the less people will be able to reproduce, which is obvious, because machines don't make children. I am talking about a time that is not too far into the future, when people will become half machines and half human. To some degree, until things are going haywire, there will still be reproduction, but it's going to be much more controlled. The Sirians want to have enough super soldiers for their army, but not more than they can manage. In such a futuristic world, people will be more interested in virtual reality than in having sex anyway, and if they need it, they go and buy a machine sex partner who can do whatever they want them to do, and afterwards the surrogate lover can be put in a closet until next time. Many people are going to demand that they can marry their machine partners. That way they don't need to show any responsibility to a real person and don't have to take a partner's needs into account. So much more time can be spent on virtual reality. So much, in fact, that the future computers will take on the consciousness of their owners. After that, note aside, let's move on. After the nanosecond, no more space will be created to accommodate a lot of people, and future generations will think back on the nano as something very special that their ancestors went through, and some of them will possibly be jealous over that they didn't have the chance to be there. So, in other words, it's a privilege to have been part of this time period. The immediate aftermath, the next 10 to 15 years perhaps, can be tough for many, who invested in things that hold no value, and I'm not necessarily talking about gold and silver, but also about not investing in increased awareness and consciousness, and make the right choices. The societal structure will change, and social security, pensions, disability claims and such things will be much harder to get, and there may not even be money enough to pay out retirement for people, although the richest people in the world have never been richer than they are now. Social services in general will be severely cut back on, because no matter what people think, things will not go back to normal again. The old world can no longer sustain itself, and the new world, whether it's the machine kingdom or living with nature, has not yet been established. We are right now living in a between world of drastic changes, and it will take time before things stabilize themselves. The Pleiadians don't see that happen until in the late 2020s, perhaps as late as 2028. This will trigger self-reliance, which is actually a good thing once we get used to it, because those who can be proactive may have the chance to break out of Sirian control to some greater extent during this time period, although it may be very tough at first. The key is to slow down and self-reflect. Hopefully, many people have already been planning for hard times by reducing their debts or perhaps even have a manageable plan how to pay them off. This is very important. There may be more urgent things to think about in the next few years than how to pay the next mortgage and the payments on that expensive car, so we'd best have that out of the way. Money may not be worth much either soon, so don't invest in having a lot of cash on the bank account. All we need to do is read up on the Great Depression in the first half of the 20th century and we know that it can happen again, and is planned to happen. People had wheelbarrows with money to go to the store and buy a loaf of bread. Money wasn't worth the paper it was written on. So invest in valuable things if you can, that will have value even through a depression. Still, the most valuable thing we can invest in is ourselves. Get a skill that is needed. Don't educate yourself to become a school teacher or something of the sort, but rather teach yourself how to maintain a garden, how to grow things you can eat, how to become a handyman, so you can barter your skills and get food and supplies in exchange, and similar practical things that are needed in catastrophic times. Nothing happens by accident, and there are absolutely no coincidences. Those who have followed my writings know by now that this is my true conviction. If something happens, and especially in politics, business and banking, it has planned to happen. So was the financial meltdown, of course, and the next phase will soon be implemented. They are crashing the dollar to such an extent that it can't recover, and that is exactly the plan. They need to implement a one-world currency as soon as possible in preparation for the gods taking over on a global scale, and for the invasion from the nano-world, which I feel is going to happen, and is actually already happening. They don't want different countries anymore, they are too hard to control. They want a global society, with one king on one throne, who will run the world through his loyal administrators. This king will look like you and I, or any human, and few will suspect he is not from Earth. However, it seems to me that they are falling behind on their time schedule and they are now in the process of speeding everything up so the next financial low will come. In between, like when I am writing this, the market is temporarily up, and people get their hope up that there will be better times, but don't hold your breath. Prepare for another meltdown that can turn into a real depression. It's a part of the plan, and I would be surprised if it didn't happen. And better safe than sorry. On the brighter side, perceptual energies are sending out codes right now. They are, as usual, in the language of light and can be decoded by the nervous system, the pineal gland and the cochlea, the little bone inside the inner ear. These are frequency signals, which our cells are programmed to respond to. We can't hear them, but they are there. These codes are triggering inner signals in both humans and animals, and they are starting to happening now, big time. We can think of it as a long-term plan, first instigated by the original creator gods. If you write a book, you'd better plan it, chapter by chapter, section by section, or the result will most possibly not be coherent. The same thing goes with the planning done by the builders and the founders. When they create life, they plan it from beginning to end. They live outside of time and can therefore see the future, present, and past simultaneously, and decide when something is going to happen with a species at a certain time, i.e. a certain code will be activated at a specific time, which will have a particular consequence in the species development. This is what we're talking about here, and this is at the same time something the Sirians don't understand the mechanics of. They only see the effects of what the creator gods, with so much greater knowledge and compassion, created. And alas! The warlords are working hard to counteract the effects they are seeing. One thing the Sirians are experts on, at least, is magic and numbers. They understand the significance of numbers in the whole scheme of universes and how they function. If we are observant, we can see quite clearly how they use very special dates when they want big, manufactured events to occur. It is often closely related to the movement of the zodiac. Listen to this: Twin Towers, 9/11, Fukushima, 3/11/11, the Great Oil Spill in the Gulf, happened on Hitler's birthday, on 4/20/2010, and the ramp sank on the Earth Day, 4/22/2010, which is quite coincidental, isn't it? We destroy the Earth on the Earth Day. And Osama bin Laden was officially killed on 5/2/11, 5 plus 2 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1 is equal to 11. The list goes on. These dates and numbers are very significant and are chosen to have a maximum effect. The number 11, in particular, is the great power number for the global elite. Still, it is of little consequence what they do, they still can't stop the explosion of consciousness. The reader may have played the game where you hammer something down that pops up from a hole in the desk or counter, but as soon as you hammer one object down, another pops up somewhere else, and you start to frantically chase objects popping up everywhere. It doesn't matter how fast you are, the objects pop up faster than you can hammer them down. Same thing with the rise of consciousness, which the Sirians have realized that by now and are therefore slightly changing their plans. Perhaps humans aren't as stupid as we thought after all, they seem to think. For their plans to succeed, they have been very reliant upon our stupidity as a human race. People may think of dogs and cats as less intelligent than we are, and we treat them as such, but if we really start learning about them, they possess abilities humans can only dream of. Dogs and cats are quite psychic and multi-D. We underestimate them, just like the Sirians underestimate us, although, some people still choose to remain in occlusion.